Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
The atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand.
It is our basic human right to be fuck up.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis.
All right, so hello and welcome to Occultae Veritatis podcast. I am Sage Murray.
Leon Pilgrim.
Ood Gallifrey.
Joining us in the studio.
Richard Bigley.
And
Declan the Wizard.
Welcome back.
Oh, yes.
All right, so before we dive into the super sad story of Andrea Yates, I think I need to share this beer that I've been drinking all night.
Okay.
What's your poison?
What's your poison?
So, what's your poison?
It's called Stranger Than Fiction, and it's a porter, and it's delicious. You got to try it.
Yeah. So we used to have 4 cans of this stuff, but I think Leon drank one recording, and then in between recordings, I drank 2 others because I like beer occasionally, and now we're down to the single can.
And I've just been, nursing it.
No, it's all good.
Do you want some, Declan?
This is the one that tastes like soy sauce.
Okay. I'll try some.
Yeah, try it.
I'll try some.
Because I'm just going to drink the rest after
actually,
this.
no, I'm sick. I should not drink out of that because I'll make other people sick if other people.
You want a cup?
I'll take a cup, sure. I'll take a cup with a little bit in it. That sounds great.
Give you a shot.
Melcy.
Yeah, it is certainly very porter.
So what do we all rate this sip of the beer that I found in Ood's fridge?
0.
Oh.
You know, I've been drinking it off and on, and I really like it. It's it's definitely a slow sipper. It's not for if you want to cool down quick, but if you want just a nice casual sipping beer, it's nice.
It's a definite sipping beer.
Yeah. What about the rest of you guys?
It's a definite sipping beer. It's a heavy porter. For those who like porter, they would probably love this.
Yeah.
I'm not a big porter fan myself because I don't like that heaviness.
Yeah.
But for those that like heavy porters, it'd be a good beer.
Yeah.
Oh, my liver just switched into overtime. It's got to filter all that.
Yeah, it's like drinking a loaf of bread.
Oh yeah, so that's our main drink we're going to be sharing. But since 1 can is a little light for 5 people, we're also going to be smoking Amnesia Haze. So
what kind is that? Will I like it?
It's a sativa. It's a high head high blend. So it's supposed to produce happiness and relaxation.
I don't want to eat a head high.
It's okay. I've got some fucking CBD.
Okay, I'll have some of
there we go.
CBD because I become useless, more useless than normal.
Yeah, I'm okay. I don't know. I think sativa and indica hit people very differently because I tend to function pretty good on sativa, but I know other people just can't talk and can't read or anything like that on sativa.
Yeah, with the high THC, I would just sit here and not be able to talk and be confused and just get frustrated. But with the CBD stuff, because it's just a body high,
yeah,
it's good.
CBD is nice. You just get those nice relaxy tingles.
Declan has a hell of a lot of breathing problems and health problems, so Declan will pass. But I mean, I'm all for people doing it. I was all for people doing it before it became legal in Canada, where we are located. I think I'm allowed to say that, am I?
Oh yeah,
that we're located in Canada. Okay.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Whatever, narc.
We've
fucking narc over here trying to push his pills on you. I'm just saying.
At one point, I released an episode where I said when I go shopping at the Confed shopping places and all that, so they know I'm close to Confed.
Oh, okay. No, Declan has a hell of a lot of health breathing problems with asthma and drugs and puffers and inhalers. I have my inhaler actually in my coat in the other room.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Thank you for the offer, though. I do appreciate that's very nice. I love you guys at OV Podcast. It's very, very nice, very welcoming atmosphere, very warm. Thank you.
Hey, no problem.
But I can't breathe normally, so I don't think I should be trying to inhale smoke of any sort.
Well, fine. If you change your mind, or maybe I'll bring some. I actually have tea bags, like weed tea.
Oh, lovely.
That I keep forgetting to bring. Like, I have them at my house.
Wait, I got it. You do?
Yeah. It's literal like tea. Like, you steep it and drink it like tea, and then it gets you high.
We got to talk later. My buddy wants to make some of that.
Oh.
And I was talking about how to do that chemically.
I don't know. I bought it. I didn't make it. This beer is good, and I really like Leon's CBD. That is like a flamethrower. Like, I'm just worried about your eyebrows.
I like sativa, but I prefer the indicas better because nothing like just some good solid couch lock and watch some cartoons or listen to your music or whatever.
Oh yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I tend to go to parties and I don't know. I try a little bit of everybody's and I get a good amount of fucked up. It's nice.
Just mooch off everyone, just like I mooch off you guys.
Health Canada warning: consumption of this product will make your music sound awesome.
It's true.
I feel like I'm just too old for THC.
Yeah.
Like it's like since my son has come along, I just don't have the energy to be that high.
Mm-hmm. I consider not as significant, but I consider cannabis to be really good for my depression as well. So I often use sativa to treat some kind of on the spot depressive symptoms where my antidepressants have me covered most of the time, but I use some high sativa stuff to, I guess, spot clean.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like to smoke with a little bit of a higher THC content, like when I'm cleaning, because I just like zoom right in.
OmniFocus.
Yeah, like my bathroom gets so fucking clean when I'm high. Like I'm just like, yes.
You should hook you up with some of that White Widow then. Like that'll make you clean anything. It's great.
And then eat pickles.
Oh yeah.
June 20th, 2001, Andrea Yates drowned her children, one by one, and then patiently waited to be arrested.
When I saw her in the jail that first time, I would ask her questions and she would answer it in nonsense. She heard the TV talking to her and she was picking her scalp, which I saw her do. Later to learn that the belief was that the number 666 had been branded into her scalp.
I'm doing Andrea Yates, who is it's a very sad story. And also it's kind of scary. So Andrea Yates was born in a town called Hallsville, Texas, and she was the youngest of 5 kids. She had bulimia during her teenage years and suffered from depression.
What era did she grow up in?
Yeah, she graduated high school in 1982.
Okay, yeah, so late 70s were all about like the jazzercise, get it skinny, skinny, skinny phase.
Yeah, so that's definite, probably contributed to her eating disorder.
Yeah.
But like I said, she graduated from high school in 1982 and was the valedictorian, captain of the swim team, and an officer in the National Honor Society. So she was a real smart cookie. Completed a 2-year nursing program at the University of Houston and ended up graduating from the University of Texas School of Nursing. She worked as a registered nurse from 1986 to 1994. In the summer of 1989, she met her husband, who was just a couple of months younger than her. They soon moved in together and were married in 1993. They both kind of announced to friends that they would seek to have as many babies as nature allowed.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and bought a 4-bedroom house.
Were they part of that Quiverful shit, or were they just like frequent knockers of boots?
No, they were a little bit religious, but I'll get into that.
Okay.
So their first child, whose name was Noah, was born in 1994.
Man, despite the Bible, I always liked that name.
Me too. It was a nice name. This was just before Rusty Yates was moved to a job in Florida, so they moved to a small trailer in Florida in a town called Seminole. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Just for confirmation, Rusty Yates is Andrea's husband.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know.
By the time of the birth of their second child, they had moved back to Houston and were living in a motorhome.
3 kids in a motorhome?
Yeah,
That's
5.
5 kids in a motorhome.
Yeah, following the birth of their 4th child, whose name's Luke, Andrea Yates kind of started to become depressed. She probably was for her other kids. She just hit it better. Postpartum depression's a bitch.
You're exhausted, you're unsure if breastfeeding is going right, why is the baby crying? I mean, there can be a wide range of emotions in the first couple weeks. 80% of women will experience this, and we kind of label that as kind of the baby blues. So that's normal. Expect that to happen, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. However, for about 15% of women, it goes beyond that, and that is what we would label as postpartum depression. If they start experiencing symptoms 9 months down the road, they don't necessarily relate it back to the pregnancy. But really anything in the first 1 year we would label as postpartum depression. Classic symptoms of depression, feeling hopeless, crying too much. Sometimes it just shows up as irritability. Of course, if you're ever having feelings of wanting to hurt yourself or wanting to hurt others, we need people to seek out help immediately. The biggest thing that I want to instill to women is that they just need to be open about it. There's no need to feel shame, to blame themselves. They are not being bad moms. They shouldn't feel like failures. They just need to be open about it.
So in 1999, Rusty found Andrea shaking and chewing on her fingers, and the next day she attempted suicide by overdosing on pills.
Oh, jeez.
So she was admitted to the hospital, obviously, and prescribed antidepressants. Soon after her release, she basically begged her husband to let her die as she held a knife up to her own neck. So she was hospitalized again, and she was given a cocktail of medications, including Haldol, which is an antipsychotic drug.
Sure is. I've been on that. It's a good time.
Yeah. We'll talk a lot about it in this episode.
That's got to be a tricky proposition. Somebody who just overdosed on too many pills, giving them,
a cocktail.
Yeah, and bulks of pills to go home with and treat themselves.
Yeah.
It's a tricky situation, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
the other side of the coin, and maybe I'm playing a little bit devil's advocate.
Oh, no,
is,
we like that.
That's fine.
What else can doctors do, right? Well, yeah. Like they could put her, they could, and what they should have done is probably put her in observation, and had her like stay in like some sort of supervised role instead of here, go home. And hopefully you take these drugs like we instruct you.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of better things out there, and there's a lot of problems with especially the American healthcare system that don't allow
this is
that.
in America. Yeah.
There's a lot of rock. They're between a rock and a hard place, really. They had to treat her.
Yeah.
They had to treat her, and they didn't. They weren't allowed to take her in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her condition actually did improve right after she was prescribed the Haldol. After that, Rusty moved the family into a small house for the sake of her health, and she appeared temporarily stabilized.
Hey, Leon, like, what is Haldol? Like, how intense is it?
It completely depends on the dosage. And the dosages I've had, it made me sleep for 2 days.
Jesus.
We've used it in long-term care settings for elderly people who are being really problematic when we can't physically restrain them. So it means like holding them down, sticking it in their leg. Sometimes it makes them sleep. Sometimes it calms them down. And once in a while, it'll have paradoxical effects and can actually make them more agitated.
Oh, geez.
I think I talk about it later in here, about how much she's on, but it's a lot.
It's a lot.
So in July of 1999, Andrea Yates suffered a nervous breakdown, which culminated in 2 suicide attempts and 2 psych hospitalizations. She was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. So that's like postpartum depression and postpartum.
Which 1 in 4,000 women are diagnosed with.
Yeah. Yeah.
1 in 4,000 new mothers, obviously. Not
new parents.
New parents.
Yeah.
1 in 4,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're not necessarily a mother if you're having a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So her first psychiatrist was named Dr. Eileen Starbranch. And she testified that she urged her and Rusty not to have any more children, as it would, in quotation marks, guarantee future psychotic depression.
Christ.
They conceived their 5th and final child approximately 7 weeks after that discharge.
I mean, what could they, like, did she want them to abort the baby at that point, or just not to try again?
Not to try again.
Okay.
But they're just all about having as many kids as nature would allow.
Man. And, like, despite the obvious damage to her like mental health every time, like that's the goal, right?
Yep. Yuck. So she stopped taking Haldol in March of 2000 and then gave birth to her daughter Mary in 2000. She seemed to be coping well, until her father died in March of 2001.
Yeah.
So then she stopped taking medication and she engaged in self-harm behaviors and read the Bible. She stopped feeding Mary, the little baby. She became so incapacitated that she required immediate hospitalization. On April 1st, 2001, she came under the care of a man named Dr. Mohammed Saeed. So remember that name because he comes back. She was treated and released. On May 3rd of 2001, she degenerated into a near catatonic state and filled the bathtub in the middle of the day. She would later confess to police that she had planned to drown her children that day, but decided against doing it then.
So it sounds like she was just like teetering right on the edge.
Yeah, just like right on that fine razor's edge.
And like enough that the bathtub got filled.
Yep. Yes. She was hospitalized the next day after her scheduled doctor's visit, and her psychiatrist determined that she was possibly suicidal and had filled the tub to drown herself. Now we're going to start talking about the murders. So trigger warnings, content warning, baby death. Okay.
Yeah, if you're not okay with descriptions of kids getting killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. So at the time of the murders, the Yates family was living in a Houston suburb. She continued under Dr. Saeed's care until June 20th, 2001, when Rusty left for work, leaving her alone to watch the children against Dr. Saeed's instructions, who he had instructed Rusty to make sure that she was watched around the clock and not to be alone with the kids. His mother, Dora Yates, had been scheduled by him to arrive an hour later to take over for her. In the space of that hour, Andrea Yates drowned all 5 of her kids in the tub.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And like minimum, just drowning time, that's 3 to 5 minutes apiece.
Yep.
Minimum.
And she just did it all methodically.
And she didn't waste any time fucking around. Like that doesn't include getting the kids up, like moving the body, like encouraging the next kid to come up, like and whatever ritualistic stuff she wanted to do.
Yeah. Oh, she did some ritualistic stuff. So she started with John, Paul, and Luke, and then laid their bodies in her bed. She then drowned Mary, who she just left floating in the tub. Noah then came in and asked what was wrong with Mary. So he tried to run away after he saw his sister's prone body in the tub, but she caught him and drowned him.
Jesus.
She left him floating in the tub and laid Mary in her brother John's arms on her bed.
Why did she change in the middle? It's almost like she wanted one of the kids to see what was going to, I don't want to put things in her head, but why else would you do that?
I don't know.
Did she want them to see?
She obviously wasn't in her right mind like this. Yeah. She's very, very,
very
unwell.
Sick.
Yeah.
Could it have been, another possibility, could it have been that she finished drowning kid number 4. She was about to start her ritual, put her in the bed, do whatever she was planning to do with her.
Yeah.
And the 5th kid walked in.
I mean,
was like, hey, what's wrong with my sister? Right.
Yeah.
You know,
it could have been that.
Maybe disrupted her plan.
Her plan. Yeah. Maybe he came in and disrupted at that time point. Right.
Yeah, that could be
it could have been it. I'm not saying it was or it was not. I have no idea.
I mean, that's plausible. I'm the oldest kid in a very big extended family, and fucking little kids are curious about whatever you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then she called the police and said she wouldn't say why, just that she needed an officer to come. And then she called her husband, telling him to come home right away.
Andrea, can you tell me your full and complete name?
Andrea Yates.
How old are you?
36.
And what's your home address?
942 Beachcomber, Houston, Texas, 77062.
Okay. And you and I have been talking for a while, right?
Yes.
You understand your rights?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to read them to you again for the purposes of this recording, okay?
Okay.
And you have a right to remain silent, not to make any statement at all, and that any statement you make may be used against you and probably will be used against you at your trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Any statement you make may be used as evidence against you in court. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You have a right to have a lawyer present to advise you prior to and during any questioning. Do you understand that?
Yes.
If you are unable to employ a lawyer, you have a right to have a lawyer appointed to advise you prior to and during any questioning. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And you have a right to terminate this interview at any time. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. You've been treated for depression, is that right?
Yes.
And who's your current doctor?
Dr. Said.
And the last time you saw him?
Two days ago.
Okay. This morning, what time is it that you got out of bed this morning?
About 8:10.
Okay. And who in your household was awake at that time?
My husband, Mary, Luke, and Paul.
Okay. And what time does Rusty leave for work?
He left about 9.
And by the time Rusty left, were all your children awake at that time?
Yes.
Okay. What was going on in the household at that time? Were they eating breakfast?
Yes.
Or what?
Yes.
What were they having?
Cereal.
Is that what you had as well?
Yes.
And Rusty left. You filled the bathtub with water, is that correct?
Yes.
And how many bathtubs are in your home?
1.
Okay. So it's just the master bath, I guess you would call it?
Yes.
Okay, is it a regular sized bathtub or is it a big one?
Regular size.
How far did you fill it?
About 3 inches from the top.
About 3 inches from the top, huh? After you drew the bath water, what was your intent? What were you about to do?
Drown the children.
Andrea was undergoing a battery of psychiatric exams. She was put on antidepressant and antipsychotic medication. As she became more stable, she started to reveal disturbing reasons for the murders.
What were you trying to accomplish then when you did take your children's lives?
Maybe in their innocent years, God would take them up.
God would take them up to be in heaven, is that what you mean? All right. And if you had not taken their lives, what did you think would happen to them?
So they would have continued stumbling.
And where would they end up?
Hell.
In hell.
Wanting to know what Andrea meant by stumbling, the psychiatrist then asked her about her children's behavior.
What sort of things did they do which showed you they weren't right?
Well, they weren't... just did a lot of silly stuff and didn't obey.
Didn't obey you when you told them to do things. All right. You mentioned their manners before. Can you give me an example of their manners?
When Rusty's mom would visit, they would not treat her well, call her names.
Be disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, you concluded that they were not righteous, and you're a religious person, and explain to me what you meant by not being righteous.
Well, they didn't do things God likes.
So during the trial, Yates confessed to drowning her children. Like, she straight up said, like, yes, I drowned my 5 kids. Prior to her second trial, she told a man named Dr. Michael Wellner that she waited for Rusty to leave for work that morning before filling the bathtub. Don't die. I'm dying.
Yeah.
Still waiting on those sleeping pills, though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right?
We are. We're still waiting on them. Okay, so she waited for her husband to leave for work before she filled the tub because she knew that he would have prevented her from harming them and would have kind of ticked in because she had already said like she had planned on killing her kids the first time she filled that tub.
Yeah.
So after the murders, when the cops came, they found the family dog locked up, and Rusty said that it had normally been allowed to run free. So when he had left the house this morning, leading the psychiatrist to allege that she locked it in the cage to prevent it from like interfering with her killing her kids.
And it's interesting that she left the dog alive.
Yeah, well, it wasn't one of her kids.
Yeah, I guess when we get into the religious reasons later, like
that's common.
Yeah.
Although the defense attorney's testimony agreed that Yates was psychotic, Texas law requires that in order to successfully assert the insanity defense, that the defendant must prove that he or she could not discern right from wrong at the time of the crime.
The legal standard for the insanity defense is what we call the McNaughton test. The McNaughton test says that somebody was insane at the time of the crime if he did not understand the nature of his actions and he could not tell the difference between right and wrong. Now, this is a very difficult legal standard to meet because, for example, if the person fled the scene of the crime, tried to cover his tracks, took evasive action, all of that would be considered evidence that he understood the difference between right and wrong or knew what he was doing was wrong. But logistically, in a insanity defense case, the way it works is we would enter a dual plea, a plea of not guilty and a second plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. And if the case went to trial, the jury would first have to determine whether the client was guilty of the crime, whether he actually committed the crime. If the jury finds that he didn't commit the crime, then the case is dismissed from there. But if the jury finds he did commit the crime, that he was guilty, then the case moves on to what we call a sanity hearing, and the court has to determine whether the person was sane or insane at the time of the crime. If the court determines that he was insane, if that defense is successful, then instead of going to prison, the person would be committed to a mental facility until such time as he regained his sanity.
In March of 2002, the jury rejected the insanity defense and found her guilty. And she was sentenced to life imprisonment with eligibility for parole in 40 years. Now, in 2005, the Texas Court of Appeals reversed the conviction because this is kind of scandalous, because a California psychiatrist and prosecution witness, Dr. Park Dietz, admitted that he had given false testimony during the trial.
Oh, for the prosecution, I suppose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he stated that shortly before the murders, an episode of Law & Order had aired, featuring a woman who drowned her children and was acquitted by murder by reason of insanity.
Oh, no.
Oh, man. Holy shit.
And that happens too, eh?
Yep.
And they said it used to happen to CSI. Like after a CSI episode would air, a bunch of criminals would go out and commit that crime.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah.
Weird. And I understand the appeal. Like, part of what I was talking about the forensic science episodes is often the defense doesn't have the money to hire experts because they're just using the money of the defendant. And if you're two parents with 5 kids, you're not going to have much extra money lying around to pay $80,000 for a psychologist to fly in for a few months and go on trial. Mm-hmm. So they probably just had the prosecution, which is paid for by the state, tell them that she wasn't actually insane, that she was in her right mind doing it, and she didn't really have a defense probably.
Right. Yep. So on February 2006, she was granted release on bail on the condition that she be admitted to a mental health treatment facility. So Yates was found not guilty by reason of insanity. And then she went to the North Texas State Hospital Vernon campus. And then in 2007, she was moved to the Caryville State Hospital, which is a low-security mental facility in Caryville, Texas, which I'll talk about at the end. The prosecutors and the defense lawyers all agreed that she was severely unwell. The state of Texas still asserted that she was, by legal definition, aware enough to judge her actions as right or wrong, despite her mental defect. The prosecution further implied spousal revenge as motive for the killings, which is bullshit.
No, that's not bull.
Yeah.
I mean, if they set that precedent, like without, I'm sure they didn't have much evidence, or it wouldn't have been rejected. But that would set a horrible precedent,
right?
Anybody who's married could theoretically be inspired motive via spousal revenge.
Mm-hmm. Although the original jury believed that she was legally aware of her actions, they didn't agree that her motive was like spouse revenge related.
No, she's like that 100% motive was batshit fucking crazy. That was that's that.
Yeah.
And not in the derogatory meaning either, meaning like her thought patterns were not logical and did not make sense. Like what she was doing, she had little control out of because her brain chemicals and wiring or whatever else was too altered for her to interpret reality correctly.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
So according to the trial testimony in 2006, Dr. Saeed had advised Rusty Yates, who was a former NASA engineer, not to leave Andrea unattended. So, however, he didn't go with the doctor's wishes and began leaving her alone with the kids in the weeks leading up to the drownings, just for like short periods of time, apparently to improve her independence. He had announced at a family gathering the weekend before the drownings that he had decided to leave her home for an hour each morning and each evening so that she would not become totally dependent on him or his mother to look after the kids. Like she could practice looking after the kids on her own, even though she wasn't able to.
But like against doctor's orders.
Against doctor's orders.
Oh, man. See, that's it. And that might be a little bit of that, like, 1960s, like, I'm the husband and I know best, so I can go a little bit away from these doctor's orders stuff.
Oh, yeah. Rusty's brother, who is named Brian Kennedy, he told Larry King on a broadcast that Rusty expressed to him in 2001 while transporting Andrea to a treatment facility that all depressed people needed was a swift kick in the pants to get them motivated.
Holy shit.
Who is this? The husband?
Yep, the husband said that.
Just a swift kick in the ass.
Yep.
Where's that been all my life?
Right?
Right?
Have you tried not being depressed? Like, just try to be happy.
Just try that,
Go
man.
for a walk in the woods.
Yeah. I mean,
have a bath with scented candles.
I mean, real talk.
Mind you, a bath with scented candles never hurt.
No, a bath with scented candles is nice.
I mean, real talk. I had a physically abusive childhood. I got kicked all kinds of places. Still depressed.
Yeah.
Still depressed.
Rusty's mom, like when Rusty told the family that he was going to let her experience independence, his mom was like, "Why are you doing this? She's not stable enough to take care of the kids." And she noted that Yates demonstrated that she wasn't in her right mind when she nearly choked the baby trying to feed the baby solid food. Like, you don't feed your kid solid food until 6 months.
Yeah. And like, again, she wasn't in the right mind. Like, she was just thinking food in mouth. Like,
exactly.
Question though.
Yeah.
How can the baby drink liquid milk and then 35 seconds later pukes up solid chunks?
I don't know.
I
maybe never puked up solid
acid
chunks.
causes it to curdle. Is that not?
I don't know.
I think that would be the reason why it's solid.
Reason.
Yeah, I think like if you mix milk with vinegar, it would curdle too. And I imagine I don't know what stomach acid is compared to vinegar, but
I don't know if babies
Much
have
stronger.
stomach acid.
I'm sure that they do.
They do have some. They do have. It's a smaller volume,
But they've
because
only
it's a
got
smaller
one
stomach.
enzyme, right? Like they only possess one stomach enzyme.
Right.
yeah, they got down. They got to digest the lactose.
Just the milk one.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got thrown up on a lot. It's gross.
Oh yeah.
Welcome to having a
yet?
child.
Have I been pooped on yet? My God. I had a white shirt that's ruined because it had 2 shit streaks down like below each nipple from where my child's legs were spread on either side of his diaper while I held him.
Punami.
Yeah, punami.
I tell you.
He's sprayed aerosolized shit past me. I missed it, but it got on other things.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Babies are gross, but also awesome.
They're awesome.
All right.
Don't drown them in the bathtub.
No, don't drown them in the bathtub. Please don't do that. We just got really off topic talking about adorable babies. According to a couple of authors, it was during a phone call that Dr. Saeed made to Rusty during the breaking news of the killings that Saeed first learned that she was not being supervised full-time. So Andrea's first psychiatrist, I mentioned her earlier, Dr. Starbranch, said that she was like completely shocked when during an office visit with the couple, they expressed a desire to stop taking meds so they could become pregnant again.
Oh man. So they both felt that they just weren't taking the medical advice seriously at all.
No, not at all.
Jesus.
Dr. Starbranch said that she had like completely warned them, like, don't have more kids. She even wrote in her medical records that apparently patient and husband plan to have as many babies as nature will allow, with an exclamation point. Mm-hmm. This will surely guarantee future psychotic depression. So,
if they're religious, like the question of how is easily answered with God will find a way.
Oh yeah. So Rusty said that he had never told the psychiatrist that his wife was psychotic or that she could harm the children. He said that he knew that she would, if he had known otherwise, then he would never have had more kids. In quotations, if I'd known she was psychotic, we'd never even have considered having more kids.
But like, if Andrea Yates was mentally ill, she wouldn't have the cognizance to hide behavior from her husband. So he probably was witnessing the same things that everybody else was. So that has to be bullshit, right?
Yep.
Fuck.
So in prison, Andrea revealed to her prison psychiatrist, whose name was Dr. Melissa Ferguson, that prior to their last child, and this is in quotes, she had told Rusty that she did not want to have sex because Dr. Starbranch had said it might hurt her children. Rusty, she said, simply asserted his procreative religious beliefs, complimented her as a good mother, and persuaded her that she could handle more children.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
That's no. Oh.
Isn't that awful?
Totally wrong.
Yeah. So during the trial, Rusty had successfully maintained the position that Yates could be found innocent. He had fantasies of having more children with her after she was successfully treated in a mental health facility and released on proper medication.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Jesus.
He worked through various fixes for their damaged lives, such as surrogate motherhood and adoption, which horrified her family, attorney, and psychiatrists, before giving into reality.
So, like, even after he's seen the worst case scenario consequence,
He still wanted to have more babies with her.
man.
He still thought that that was a good idea and that it would be fine.
Was it because of his religion, or was he just fucked up himself?
I think
Is there a difference?
I'm not saying there is.
I kind of know what you're talking. That almost sounds compulsive.
Yeah.
Yeah, like is it him sitting there saying, my religion says I need to have as many kids as I can, or is it him and his religious doctrine saying that as well, or is it him saying my interpretation of my religion is I need to have as many kids as I can?
Was he just like, a privileged spoon up the ass, like just expects exactly what he wants? Like, no, is he that kind of person, or is he mentally ill?
I don't forget my children, and I don't forget Andrea, but I don't dwell on it either. I try to remember my children fondly and, just support Andrea, but it's not consuming my life. I'm building a new life. I'm busy at work and remarried and have a new family, and it's, I'm more focused on that now. So first trial, they said Andrea did this to try to, get out, whatever that means, and which sounded like she wasn't happy at home and, was in a bad situation at home and wanted to get out. And this time they said she wanted to run off with me into the sunset. Well, which is it? The fact is they spent 5 years and still don't have a reason why she did it, because they're unwilling to look at the fact that she was psychotic. That's the only reasonable explanation for her behavior. They're refusing to see the obvious, They're refusing to see the obvious that she was a sick woman. She was insane, She was psychotic. She believed she was saving our children. Here's a woman with a perfect record. I mean, she had never been in any trouble in her life. Everyone who knows her, everyone who knew her supports her. Everyone knows what a great mother she was and how out of character this act was for her.
Like, he was really super religious, which I can talk about that now.
Side note, he was also a NASA engineer,
Yeah, NASA engineer.
Okay.
Oh, smart guy.
Yeah.
So-
I'll have comments on that after the religious.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that one NASA astronaut who was married to another NASA astronaut, and then they had a big fight, and then he was in Florida and she was in Texas, and she put on some space diapers and drove across 3 states to come hunt his ass down?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, there's enough. Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
NASA astronauts are crazy.
Yeah, she didn't want to make any pit stops because she wanted to use every extra minute. So she drank coffee like a motherfucker. She just drank protein shake, and she wore a diaper and shit herself to get there in time.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right.
Yeah.
We could make an episode just like NASA bloopers, because there's a history of shit.
There's a few of them.
Yeah.
Takes a special kind of person. Anyway, sorry. Yes, go ahead.
So, like, a big influence in Rusty's life was a man named Michael Waroniecki, which I could do like another whole episode on. He was a preacher that Rusty had met while attending Auburn University. A lot of media outlets alleged that he bears some responsibility for the deaths, because he was like really like fire and brimstone message.
And God shall execute his vengeance on ye who despise his dying love and trample his benefits underfoot. The unconverted soul, the foolish children of man, do miserably delude themselves in the false confidence of their own strength and wisdom. Now the great King of heaven and earth will abolish and annihilate this pride. Will crush the hardened wretch of the polluted, infinite abomination and rain on him a deluge of fire and brimstone. And the dread judge has the key of hell. He shuts, and no man opens. In hell, you will be reserved in chains of darkness forever and ever. This place of atonement, of damned souls and misery, with nothing to relieve you, no comfort, but the everlasting, infinite convulsions of misery, forever and ever and ever. And who is man to think he can withstand God's mighty wrath? Yea, he can lay the earth to pieces in one moment, or shatter the whole universe with one stroke of his fiery sword. This is the dismal case of every soul in this congregation who has not been born again. However moral or strict, sober, and religious you may otherwise be, there is no security for the wicked, because there are no visible signs of death at hand. Unconverted men walk over the pit of hell on a rotten covering. And there are innumerable places on this covering so weak, they will not bear their weight. A soul doomed to the everlasting bottomless pit of a divine wrath. Yes, death comes unexpectedly.
They reported that Andrea Yates's delusions were fueled by the extreme religious beliefs of a bizarre itinerant street preacher named Michael Waroniecki. But both Rusty and Michael have rejected those accusations. Rusty had said his family's relationship with the Waroniecki's were not that close, and that Michael did not cause her delusions. Waroniecki maintained his correspondence with them with the intention of helping to strengthen their marriage, like through the power of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And both men agreed that the alleged connection between the fire and brimstone message and her mental state was, in quotations, nothing more than media-created fiction.
And if it's any Abrahamic Western shit, it's, dad is the head of the household, and then the mom, and then the children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while she was in prison, Andrea actually confessed that she had been thinking about killing the kids for 2 years. They thought that she wasn't a good mother, and she claimed that her sons were developing improperly. She told her jail psychiatrist, in quotation marks, "It was the seventh deadly sin. My children weren't righteous. They stumbled because I was evil. The way I was raising them, they could never be saved. They were doomed to perish in the fires of hell." She also told that psychiatrist that Satan influenced her children and made them disobedient. And that's sad.
I mean, let's look at the Old Testament. It says that if your children disobey you, you're allowed to kill them.
Yeah.
You're allowed to put them to death for disobeying the mother and the father.
Cool.
So, how could she not come to that conclusion?
Right.
I can see how religion could set out that twisted logic.
Well, that combined with a very already fragile mental state and a easily influenced mental state.
Yeah.
Right. Rusty even blamed Dr. Saeed because he was responsible for recognizing her mental health, and it's not my fault that I didn't follow their instructions, which is crazy.
Yeah.
A lot of Rusty and his family kind of blamed the psychosis on the combination of antidepressants, and they contended that they were improperly prescribed. So Andrea, I'm just going to read this. This is all in quotations. Andrea was on 450 milligrams of Effexor, among other medications, and was, in his opinion, severely over-medicated.
I'm on Effexor right now.
Are you on 450 milligrams?
I'm on 300 milligrams.
Nice.
Yeah.
The psychiatrist said he would reduce the Effexor from 450 milligrams to 300 milligrams.
Hey.
Yeah. He protested and quoted his own extensive research on the antidepressant. He had read that it shouldn't be reduced more than 75 milligrams every 3 or 4 days.
Oh, yeah.
Not 150 milligrams in one day.
Yeah, the scary thing about this Effexor, it's working really well for me, but the doctor himself used the words heroin-like withdrawal. So you gotta go off nice and smooth.
Yeah, so she was on Effexor, and lots of people blamed the effects are, because they said that she was on, like, the 450 milligrams was way more than the recommended dose. So a lot of people thought that was...
Because that's one of those norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a doctor named Dr. Lucy Purrier, who was an expert witness that was hired by Andrea's defense team. She said that the doses prescribed by Dr. Saeed are not uncommon in practice and had nothing to do with her re-emergent psychosis. She suggested rather that her psychosis returned as a result of her Haldol being discontinued by her doctor the 2 weeks earlier. It usually takes 4 to 5 days after stopping to reach they call it a terminal plasma level of under 1.5%, which is a medical standard for complete elimination of a drug from the body. So they thought that maybe it was because of that.
Okay.
They ended up getting divorced. Like, no shit.
Yeah.
Rusty got married again. Who cares? Yeah. So this is kind of where Andrea is now. So I copied this. I'll find the link to it, but I'm just going to read it verbatim.
Yeah.
It was a story that stunned the nation on June 20th, 2001, a trial that captured headlines, an overturned conviction, and a second trial that changed the dialogue of mental health.
Yeah. This is where, like...
This is from June of this year. This is like where Andrea Yates is now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Medical illness as a whole is scary for people because it's hard to see from the outside, said Dr. Matthew Fobion of Kerrville State Hospital. Far away from the limelight, on the edge of the Texas Hill Country, is a place Andrea Yates has called home for more than a decade. She's where she needs to be, said attorney George Parnham. There are no guards with firearms, no razor wire fences. The patients at Kerrville State Hospital are here not because they want to be out, but because the court sent them here for treatment. There are 202 people in this facility with 202 different sets of needs, said Dr. Fobion. And while as clinical director, he can't tell you which one of them is Andrea Yates for confidentiality reasons, her attorney George will. Like many patients here, Yates was found not guilty by reason of insanity, a defense raised in only about 1% of felony cases, and successful in only about 1/4 of those.
And
attorney George Parnham has been her defense lawyer since the case began, and he joins us now. Hello, Mr. Parnham. Really good to see you.
Thank you very much for having me.
And we listen to the details of the case again. It brings it all back about how disturbing, how troubling, how horrific it was. And then when I see that she was mentally ill, this is what I need your help in understanding. If she understood right from wrong, how can you still be mentally ill? Because in my definition, for most people, you think mentally ill, they have no idea what they're doing. Help me understand that.
Well,
in her case,
sure. Her awareness of the wrongfulness of her acts was a surface awareness, much like a child who reads and understands and memorizes a poem, not necessarily knowing what the poem means, but able to recite. Andrea believed absolutely that her children were going to perish and burn forever in the fires of hell. She believed that Satan lived within her, and certainly she was aware of what she was doing, but her belief system, because of the chemical imbalance as a result of postpartum psychosis, she was living within a delusion, and that delusion was as real to her as I am to you today. And so as a consequence, she acted on what she did and believed was the best thing in the world for her kids.
You paint a picture of a very unstable woman, a woman who clearly needs help. And yet you believe that now she should re-enter society. Why? What has changed?
Well, I base it on the reports from the doctors, and that's basically all we can do is listen to the recommendations of the physicians that have treated her over the past 10 years.
But what do you see? You said before you feel that you actually crossed the line professionally with her. You have a very close relationship with her. So what do you see as a person who must know her well now after 10 years? Do you see any change?
Oh, immensely. She's not the same person that she was 10 years ago when I first, or 11 years ago when I first met her the day after she drowned her kids.
Is she remorseful? Does she
Very much so.
Is she remorseful?
Very much so. She's she grieves for her children.
Mm-hmm.
She, the days of birthdays, she grieves for her kids. Obviously, on the date of the anniversary, I hate that word, but the date of the anniversary of the deaths, those are tough times for her.
The chances of her walking, Mr. Parnham, are what?
Well,
if you could say in a sentence, because we have to go.
Yeah, it's going to be the judge's call, but all the doctors and the medical professionals now say that she is ready to be brought back in, acclimated to society,
Right.
when it's anybody's guess, but I think she's well enough.
It is a decision many will be watching very closely. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Just a note to people out there. My mom worked in the forensics ward of the Saskatchewan hospital for many years.
So did my aunt-in-law.
And there seems to be an attitude in society that if you get off by reason of insanity, that you somehow got off easy.
You did not.
From what I know about maximum lockup prisons, and from what I know about what my mom told me about the psych ward that she worked on, where people got off by reason of insanity, they had much less freedom than the prisoners.
Yeah. Parnham said, "I see her as my daughter, and I see no downturn in her treatment, nor in the effect of the treatment on her. Quite the opposite. A walk on campus won't find any cells or shackles, just a green line that shows patients the boundaries. The campus is set up to duplicate a community from the canteen to the library. It's the responsibility of the patients to follow their schedules, including work shifts like the laundry room, where men and women fold linen beside one another for this facility and for nearby prisons. Patients also learn to take their medication. 90% of them are on antipsychotic meds. They attend group therapy like music class and one-on-one counseling. The ultimate goal here is to move them out of the hospital and into the community.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission is twofold in that we're tasked to treat someone's mental illness and also make them safe for community reentry. So no one can leave this facility until they are no longer dangerous and can be safely treated in a community-based setting. Here it's about treatment. I believe it's not responsible to punish someone for doing something that they didn't know was wrong in a setting where they couldn't control their actions. That doesn't mean they got away with anything," said Faubion. Parnham visits Yates on a regular basis. We have conversations very, very frequently, and they are like my conversations with you now, logical, rational, said Parnham. Yates's routine is like the other patients here. While she hasn't been seen in public for years, her artwork has. But the customers who have purchased pieces from the Kerrville store have no idea who may have made it.
Oh, so it's anonymous.
Yeah, so like she's an artist and people like buy her stuff.
You know
and
what?
They don't know.
Similar to the Saskatchewan hospital, they have a woodworking shop, and you can buy the pieces of wood, like the little chests and chairs and all that the patients there have built. So I guess that's kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that woodwork?
Oh, in North Battleford.
Like the mental health facility?
Yeah. They have a little woodworking shop in the back.
Yeah.
I have questions, but maybe not the appropriate time to ask.
Well, of course, they would select patients who have a low degree of risk with tools. And of course, if there's any high-risk tools, they get an actual carpenter to use them instead of the patients and stuff like that. And
okay, that was my question. There we go. You answered everything.
They do it safely, not like stupidly.
Yeah.
Hey, person who just tried to kill themselves, here's like a dowel with a sharp edge.
Wow.
You should use this.
Dowel with a sharp edge. Do you know what a dowel is?
I
the
actually
dowel's
don't.
not got a sharp edge.
I don't have a clue, to be honest.
Clearly.
I thought it was like a broomstick. Isn't it like a broomstick?
I don't know.
Not.
Is it a term?
It's like a cylinder piece of wood.
Oh, it's a cylindrical piece of wood, but it doesn't have a sharp end. Then it becomes a dagger.
Or a skewer.
Anything
or
is
a skewer, yeah.
Bow and arrow.
Anything is a dagger if you try hard enough.
Okay, anyway.
Sorry.
So Parnham says that the money that Yates has received from her artwork is sent to his office and placed in a memorial fund that assists in screening low-income women for mental health issues. So Andrea is donating all the money that she makes to this foundation. Dr. Faubion says another part of the treatment for patients as they progress is realizing the consequences of their actions. The court finding someone not responsible is very different than someone forgiving themselves for the action, said Dr. Faubion. When asked if Yates had shown remorse, Parnham added, she's obviously very aware and is impacted tremendously by what happens. In a not guilty by reason of insanity verdict, the court has jurisdiction over you for as long as your sentence would have been. In Yates's case, that's the rest of her life. Parnham says she has waived her appearance for a review every year, and passing the review would be the only way that she would ever be released.
Man.
When Parnham was asked, what is your best hope for Andrea Yates? He added, I want her to be as well as possible. I want her to be happy.
So she doesn't even want out.
No, I think she is receiving the support that she needs, and then she acknowledges that.
She believes she's in a stable place.
Yeah.
Can I ask a stupid question?
I'm fine.
God. How is she affording this in the States? Is this like paid for?
Well, it's like jail.
Oh, okay. So it is.
It's like a
state ran.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a mental institution
Yeah.
jail.
If you get signed over, I believe they would have to sign her over to the state even just to give them jurisdiction to pay over it and all that.
Like she's a ward of the state kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much, I would say.
Okay.
And I don't think any ethical, well, I don't know how much rope I want to give America, but I don't think any ethical place would just kick somebody out in the street if they couldn't pay and all that.
Yeah, they would.
They sure would. In the States, probably, but I honestly have no idea. That's why I asked the question.
But she was fined not responsible by reason of insanity.
Yeah,
so
but I mean like by reason of insanity patient.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they would kick out a reason of insanity patient.
That would be
that would be bad.
Risk to the public.
They wouldn't stop her from buying a gun, though.
No.
Nope.
That's right.
Every American's right.
Yep.
Shall not be infringed.
Yes. The meme met reality when Sacha Baron Cohen got those Republicans to endorse like toddler guns with happy like plush figures around them and shit. And
best thing ever.
Oh God.
Wouldn't you love to meet this little gunny rabbit?
He's ready to put the naughty man on a very long time out.
If you need some laughs to deal with Trump presidency, watch
Who is America?
Yeah. Who is America?
Who is America?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let us know what you think about Andrea Yates. I think it's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it reminds me. Who's the vampire serial killer?
Richard Chase.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of him. A lot of carnage and a lot of sadness and a lot of tragedy could have been prevented if
by proper healthcare.
Yeah. And if her fucking husband wasn't such a stick up the ass and like got her the help she needed and didn't want her to just keep on popping out fucking kids.
Yeah, her husband seems like a dick.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'll try and put a happy song at the end, I guess.
For Occultae Veritatis, I am Sage Murray.
Leon Filger.
Ood Gallifrey.
Joining us in studio.
Richard Bigley.
And
Declan the Wizard.
Thanks. Love you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you next time. And there is episode 65. So thank you for listening. Now we're going to play one of our palate cleansers. This one was sent in by a listener to our email box, ovfeedback@gmail.com. If you want you or a friend's music to be featured on the podcast, just send a high-quality MP3 to ovfeedback@gmail.com. But for today, our palate cleanser is Friends Out There by Powder. That's Friends Out There by Powdeer. Enjoy and see you in the after show.
Could we pretend to be friends? I'll make it worth your while. Could you text me with more than just a smile? Like how you doing since you moved back home? And how you doing since you started using
welcome to the after show. I'm Leon Filger, along with
Sage Murray.
Ood Gallifrey.
We got an email, and I'm going to read it. It's from Miss X. She writes, I wanted to thank Leon for sharing his story. It resonated well with me. My uncle killed himself when I was 4, and my mom told me that he killed himself because he was sad. So from an early time, I was terrified of being sad because that meant I would have to kill myself. So I always thought I had the idea that suicide was an option. So being depressed or being sad was scary because I knew if it got bad, I could always kill myself.
Man.
When I was 16, I wrote a note and hadn't decided what I was going to do with it, and my mom found it. I was put in school therapy for suicide risk kids. This was from middle school to high school. When I was in my 20s, I started seeking help for my depression and got meds, and they sort of helped. But when I was also becoming a mom, so I was off the meds as much as I was on them.
Mm-hmm.
After my second son, the meds made me manic, and so that scared me. I was up for days and I hated it. So I got a new therapist, and we tried herbal and non-prescription remedies. My marriage fell apart, and I moved back home with my aunt and 2 kids. At this time, my mom's health was getting bad, so my brother and I decided to move in together and take care of her together. A few years after that, she got really bad, and the herbal remedies were not helping anymore. When my mom died, I lost my shit, full-blown psychotic break.
Oh, no.
But I couldn't let myself be hospitalized because I still had kids to take care of. But I was super paranoid that the earth was no longer able to hold all of the human life and creations. I'm from Chicago, so the downtown area is built right off the lake. I was convinced that we had built too much and the whole city would collapse into the water.
Yikes.
At my house, we have a tree out front, and I was convinced the tree was growing too fast and it was going to grow into the house and the house would collapse. I finally got a new doctor and got prescribed actual meds, and after finding the right cocktail of meds, I started to get better. 4 years to the day my mom passed away, we found out that my dad had the same brain cancer that my mom had and needed surgery to remove the tumor. He had surgery in December and passed away in February. But I adjusted my meds again, and I'm finally getting to the point that I'm starting to feel normal again. But I still had to adjust my meds last week because with the depression subsided, the mania came back.
Ugh.
I was diagnosed with bipolar 2, but I'm more into helping with my health, and I can tell when I'm getting depressed or manic or whatever. But I try to share my story with people so they know it's not a lonely thing. So I thank you for sharing your story as well. It made me feel like I really am not alone, and there are others out there with stories. Anyway, thank you. I'm so glad that you are doing so much better. Better is good. I love the podcast and how honest everyone is with everything. Cheers, Miss X.
Oh, we love you, Miss X.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I really resonate with that because often, like, the struggle with balancing your meds with life and, like, trying to barely hold on and fix yourself until those medications kick in, like, that's often a very private struggle, and it can feel very lonesome.
Well, and being, like having kids, like there's lots of meds that you can't take because your baby doesn't need your antidepressants through your breast milk or whatever.
Yep.
So
yeah, there's a lot of like antidepressants and psych meds that are teratogenic and can
go
cause
through
birth defects in your baby.
So it's like I empathize with that.
There
like,
are
that's tough.
meds that like I had to be careful of because they could have caused defects in my sperm that could have caused problems with baby Leon Filger.
Christ.
Yeah, like there's one med that I had to go off because it could have made my semen teratogenic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy, hey?
Modern medicine is amazing, but it's also playing with huge forces. Like it's the butterfly effects of some chemicals that pharmacology can give you is sometimes intimidating.
Yeah. But we're really glad that you found a combo that seems to be working. If you ever need anything, we're around.
Yeah, shoot us another email. We're happy to listen.
Or slide into our DMs.
Yeah.
On Twitter or whatever.
Yeah, and so all three of the people in this room like are medicated and had to balance stuff out and fight their ways out and experiment and all that. So you're not alone. We're here.
Yeah, we're here.
All right.
We love you.
All right. For Occultae Veritatis, I'm Ood Gallifrey.
Sage Murray.
Leon Filger.
Have a good night.
Love you. Bye.
Cheers.